Oh my gosh. So today was a super terrible morning. I woke up almost an hour late. I forgot to charge my phone. My alarm didn't go off. I drove to work as fast as I could, hurried through the lobby. A coworker came around the corner. She spilled coffee all over my shirt. I ran to the restroom, cleaned myself up, and somehow I still made it to my meeting on time. Okay, honestly, that never happened. I've made that story up, but I made it up for a very good reason. My guess is you understood every sentence I just said. You know exactly what happened. And maybe you've wanted to tell a similar kind of story in English. For example, maybe you've needed to explain why you arrived late to work. Or maybe you wanted to tell someone about a stressful morning trying to get the kids out the door to school. And one small problem led to another and another. Or maybe something funny or completely unexpected happened while you were traveling, shopping, or just going through your day. In each case, you know exactly what happened. You remember all the details and you want to share them with someone else. But perhaps while you're speaking in the moment, it's difficult to put all those details together clearly and show exactly what happened and when. So I want you to listen to a specific part of my story again. And we're going to pay attention specifically to how I said it the first time and a much better, much clearer way to tell that same story. So at the beginning, I said, I hurried through the lobby. A coworker came around the corner. She spilled coffee all over my shirt. Now, let's change that just a little bit. I was hurrying through the lobby when a coworker came around the corner and spilled coffee all over my shirt. The facts in these two stories are exactly the same, but the second version clearly shows that the spill of coffee happened while I was hurrying through the lobby. It makes the timeline easier to understand. Let me give you another example. And this time we're going to go back to the beginning of the story. Again, I said, I forgot to charge my phone. My alarm didn't go off. A better way to say that is, I had forgotten to charge my phone the night before, so my alarm didn't go off. With this structure, you now know when I forgot to charge it, and you understand why my alarm didn't go off. It's because the night before, I forgot to charge my phone. And as a result, the whole morning started off badly. When we're telling stories or sharing memories, it's important for us to know what happened and when. This is exactly why we use more than one past tense to tell those stories. It isn't about making our grammar sound more advanced. Instead, it's helping the listener understand how all the events fit together. In a recent lesson, I shared how to talk about your past habits and routines with used to, would, in the past simple. This lesson is different. Here, we're telling one story about one particular day or a moment in that day. So by the end of this lesson, you'll know exactly how to use the past simple, the past continuous, and the past perfect to tell stories showing what happened and when in the clearest way possible. Now, my guess is you already know how to use the past simple in English. But when it comes to telling stories, there's a very useful question to ask. And that question is, what is the job of the past simple in a story? To understand what the job is, let's go back to that story I told at the beginning. I woke up almost an hour late. I drove to work as fast as I could. A coworker spilled coffee all over my shirt. I ran to the restroom. I made it to the meeting. Each sentence answers the same question. What happened next? I woke up late, and what happened next? I drove to work. I drove to work, and what happened next? A coworker spilled coffee on me. Each event is presented as something that is complete or finished, and then the story moves to the next event. The past simple helps your listener follow these events from the beginning of the story to the end. But not every detail answers what happens next. Some details answer completely different questions. For example, why didn't my alarm go off? And what was I doing at the moment when the coffee spilled? To answer those questions clearly, we need the past perfect and the past continuous. So let's start with answering that second question. What was I doing at the moment the coffee was spilled? In the first version of the story, I said, I hurried through the lobby. A coworker came around the corner. She spilled coffee all over my shirt. All three actions are in the past simple, so they sound like totally separate events. But now let's change that a little bit to I was hurrying through the lobby when a coworker came around the corner and spilled coffee on my shirt. Now the relationship between these actions is clear. The coffee was spilled while I was hurrying through the lobby. That action was in progress at the moment the coffee was spilled. And to illustrate that, to make it abundantly clear, we use the past continuous. I was hurrying through the lobby. And then when we want to highlight that an event happened during that action, we use the past simple. I was hurrying through the lobby when a coworker came around the corner and spilled coffee. This combination is really common in storytelling. The use of the past continuous and then when and the past simple. For example, I was driving home when my sister called. We were having dinner when the lights went out. She was talking to a neighbor when she heard the crash. The past continuous shows what was happening at that moment or during that period of time. And the past simple tells us what happened during. In this particular story that I've been sharing, this sentence helps you or anyone listening to understand exactly when the coffee was spilled. Again, I was hurrying through the lobby when a coworker came around the corner and spilled coffee. Now, of course, telling stories like this is not something that we only do in grammar lessons or when we're writing and we have a lot of time to think. We tell these stories in the moment when someone asks about our day, or when we explain what went wrong, or when we want to share that something funny or surprising happened. Getting real speaking practice and support makes it easier for you to tell stories and find the words or the grammar structures you need in your daily English life. That is exactly the kind of practice women get inside the Confident Women community. It's the kind of practice that helped my student Natalia say, now I speak without fear. I can finally enjoy the conversation. If you want to start enjoying your English conversations without fear, without embarrassment, I'll share a link in the episode notes on where you can get more details about the Confident Women community. But now let's return to our story and answer the other key question. Why didn't my alarm go off? Once again, let's revisit what I shared at the beginning. I forgot to charge my phone. My alarm didn't go off. This highlights that both events happened in the past, but it's not really clear when I forgot to charge my phone. And it's not clear that these two things are related. So let's make a small change. I woke up almost an hour late this morning. I had forgotten to charge my phone last night, so my alarm didn't go off. Using had forgotten, the past perfect form, takes us back to what happened before. It shows that forgetting to charge my phone happened before all of the events this morning. And that is the job of the past perfect in a story. It helps your listener understand that one past event happened before another one. Here are a few more ways to show just how useful this is in stories with this particular structure of the past simple with because and then the past perfect. My alarm didn't go off because I had forgotten to charge my phone. She couldn't get into the house because she had left her keys inside. He was exhausted because he hadn't slept well the night before. In each example, the past simple tells us what happened later. The past perfect explains what had happened earlier or previously. And then once that earlier event is clear, you can return to the past simple and continue the story. So, with this clear understanding of how the past simple, past continuous, and past perfect work together, let's put our original story back together with a clearer timeline. So, I might have said, "Oh my gosh, this morning was terrible. I woke up an hour late. I had forgotten to charge my phone the night before, so my alarm didn't go off. I drove to work as fast as I could, and then I was hurrying through the lobby when a coworker came around the corner and spilled coffee all over me. I ran to the restroom, cleaned myself up, and made it to the meeting." Now it is much clearer to understand both what happened and when each event happened. The past simple gives us the main events. I woke up late. I drove to work. A coworker spilled coffee. I ran to the restroom. I made it to the meeting. The past continuous shows what I was doing when the coffee was spilled. At that moment, I was hurrying through the lobby. And the past perfect takes us back to what started all of this in the first place. The night before, I had forgotten to charge my phone. Do you notice that in most of the story, it's still in the past simple? You only need the past continuous or past perfect when your listeners need that little bit of extra information about when something happened. So now it's your turn to practice. I want you to think about one small event from your life. It could be something funny or surprising or unexpected. And I want you to start by identifying all the main events. What happened first? What happened next? And then tell those events using the past simple to get started. After you do that, ask yourself, was something already happening when one of those events occurred? If yes, use the past continuous to add that detail. And then, is there something that happened earlier or before that your listener needs to know? Again, if yes, then use the past perfect to explain it. I would love for you to try to use 4, 5, or 6 sentences. And remember, you don't need to force all 3 tenses into your story. Only use the continuous and the perfect forms when your listener needs to understand what happened and when did it happen. If you want, you can share your story with me in the comments below. As always, if you found this lesson helpful to you, don't forget to subscribe or follow wherever you're watching or listening from today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to next time.